Thanks. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the February 6th Town Council meeting, the regularly scheduled meeting, and if you would bow your heads, we have invocation will be brought tonight by Councilman Moyer.
Yeah, thank you. Please bow with me. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this time that we get together and do the public's work. We just pray that you guide us in our decisions tonight. Help us make the best decisions for all of Apex. I just pray that you be with everybody who's hurt and struggling. Pray for our service members here locally and abroad who are protecting the amazing freedoms that we all enjoy in this great country. I thank you for your Son, Jesus. In His name, amen.
Amen. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know you could be anywhere and you chose to be here, and that's amazing. So thanks for caring about your town and coming out tonight. I'd like to, first, before we get going, just remind you a couple of things. First, we have public forum coming up in a few minutes. If you intend to speak, you need to have your name on that sheet in the next 5 minutes before the town clerk picks it up and hands it to me. Secondly, if you didn't get one of these yellow sheets from outside the podium, please go get one now if you intend to speak, because this is the policy and guidelines for public speaking. So I'd ask you to be familiar with those, which include things such as being aware of the 3-minute rule and the green, yellow, red lights and all those kind of things. Lastly, if you'd missed it and you want to go get an agenda, there's some stapled agendas that look like this out on the podium. Feel free to go get one now. No one will be offended if you get up and go get one right in the middle of the meeting. All right, we get started now. We have a presentation from Barbara Conroy and Stephanie Mitchell on the Apex Public School Foundation.
Good evening. Good evening. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for your time as well. And I know you all are here with agendas as well. I'm going to try and get through this briefly, but I am very excited about this. So I hope that you all join me in my excitement. My name is Barb Conroy. Unfortunately, my co-presenter, Stephanie, came down with the flu. So we're happy she's not here, and we're wishing her well. So I'm going to carry this all solo. I live in Cary. I have an incredibly supportive husband and a 3-year-old and 7-year-old daughter. My 7-year-old goes to Laurel Park Elementary, and most likely, everything's unpredictable, but most likely will continue going to schools in Apex for the duration of her public school career. Because of my background, I am a former teacher. I attended UNC Chapel Hill. I've worked with children and families for almost 20 years, focusing on children with special needs, and worked as an inclusion specialist at the pre-K, K, and first grade level while we lived in New Jersey. I am a major advocate for public education, and as my daughter finished up kindergarten and got ready for her first grade year, I met with our PTA president, and we were talking about the realities of public education in our state, and most importantly, right here in our hometown. And that conversation led to this. Our proposal is to bring to our community a public school foundation to help our schools, our students, and our teachers reach their true potential and enhance the learning environment and opportunities for all students. And I want to share with you all what our vision is. We would love to see this unveil come August, September of this calendar year. So just first, why is there a need? And there's no surprise to anybody here that all the data coming out currently is showing that NC lags behind the rest of our country. A current study put us in 45th place in terms of funding for our public schools. Again, as an advocate, that's not acceptable. And I'm looking at what we can do as a community to fill in some gaps. There's bigger issues. I can't solve those. But if I can help to rally our community and provide extra opportunities, I'm going to go right for it. there's stats all here, I'm not going to read through all of it, but per pupil spending has decreased over the last 10 years. That's concerning to me as a mom, as an educator, and as somebody who believes in public education. Looking at Wake County's per pupil spending is significantly below the national average. It's below some of our comparable counties in the state as well. And I'll let you all just take a second to look through that. So again, this has been in the news. We know that our spending on students in public education isn't up to par with the rest of the country, but what does that really mean? What's happening in the classrooms? Because of the decreased spending, we're seeing larger class sizes. Larger class sizes will restrict one-on-one time and small group time that teachers can have with students. It's going to restrict the collaborative learning that's part of the district's strategic plan, just because in space you can't have groups working, collaborating with each other when there's not enough space for the number of students being crammed into a classroom. Increased teacher workloads. Teachers are having more students in their classes. They might be picking up extra sections of classes. We're seeing reduced classroom and school-wide instruction materials. To meet the needs of all learners, we need a diverse library of materials, because you have students who are going to be visual learners, you have students who are going to be kinesthetic learners, you have students who are going to be auditory learners. It is our responsibility as a community and as schools to meet the needs of all learners. And again, this has been in the news lately as well. Teachers are spending their own money for classroom supplies, and this is on average. There are definitely teachers who are spending 2 to 3 times that amount. So again, we are acknowledging that there is a need, that we know that additional funding is going to help support all levels, the schools, the teachers, and most importantly, the students, because that's what this is all about. And this is the need that led us on the path and planted the seed to create this foundation for APEX. So, what is this proposed APEX Public School Foundation? Basically, what we're proposing is a nonprofit organization to support, to enhance the opportunities taking place in our classrooms. These are going to be supplemental resources, and here's the key, that are not included in the district's budget. The district has a responsibility. We're going to then try and supplement we're going to try to supplement with some innovative programs that the budget does not currently cover. We hope to do that by developing a strong base of volunteers and increasing that community involvement in our schools. We also hope to do that by securing funding and awarding these monies so that there can be more resources provided in these classrooms. As I said before, our mission is to enrich and enhance the teaching and the learning. Learning's not going to happen if our teachers aren't motivated, if our teachers aren't getting new skills. And yes, Wake County's providing ongoing teacher training, but individual teachers or cohorts of teachers might have special interests that they want to bring into their schools and into their classrooms. And this might be another way of providing some professional development for those more isolated, specialized areas. And again, just strengthening that community, because the more our community stands behind our schools, the stronger our schools are going to be in turn. So the vision. Our vision is to fund programs that are going to enhance all areas, including academics, those core subjects, the arts, technology, and enrichment areas. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We're going to help move education forward, aligned with the Wake County Public School strategic plan. We also are going to, as I said, seek funds and then use those funds to award grants to teachers through a formal teacher grant program, where teachers would apply for the money and a committee would score the teacher grants based on a blind rubric. And that rubric would also be aligned with the Wake County strategic plan. We also would like to create and then maintain programs that are going to bring in some innovative educational and instructional programs. And again, I keep bringing in the community, because the more community support that we have of our public schools, the stronger the entire system will be. What we're proposing is serving all the schools that have an APEX mailing address. That's currently 17 schools. With APEX Friendship Middle School opening up next year, that would be 18 schools in our area. And as new schools or built with Apex mailing addresses, they would automatically be part of the foundation. So what will an education foundation bring to our community? Everybody wins here. This is such a no-brainer, in my very biased opinion, but such a no-brainer, because clearly our schools are going to win. They're going to have innovative programs because they're going to be having these additional funding, additional resources, additional support. The teachers are going to win because right now teachers feel a little bit deflated, and the teachers are going to feel the community rallying behind them and supporting their mission on a regular basis. The teachers are also going to experience that increased innovation and motivation for teaching. The district's going to win because the district's going to gain that community support, and there's just going to be another means for communication with the community. And the students, again, our most important piece of this entire puzzle, the students are going to win because they're going to have these enhanced learning experiences. And lastly, the community. The community is going to win because when our schools succeed, our community becomes more and more successful and appealing to industries, to business, and to people relocating to our area. So the community is only going to grow and get stronger. The next steps. I'm here today to let you know about our plan and our proposal, to let all of you please know about our plan and our proposal. So moving forward, what we're doing, we're going to be collaborating with all the PTAs in Apex, the 17 schools, and the building principals, and really getting a thorough needs assessment to make sure what our vision is matches what the needs are, so that we truly can use this money to reach the needs of all 18 schools. Networking with community leaders, business owners, parents, families, to find people who have a shared vision and want to support us in what we're doing, whether that is through volunteering or through monetary donations. We need to build our board and really reflect our very diverse community. Apply for nonprofit status, work on social media, and increasing just knowledge of this foundation throughout the community. Programmatically, as I mentioned, we want to be a grant-based program. So we're going to have to create that grant application, create that rubric to best align with Wake County Public Schools. We also would like to have a STEM component to our program and develop something where we can get some STEM volunteers from our community coming into schools and enhancing that piece of the curriculum. And then last is the fundraising. Again, our plan is to kick off next school year, so we'd like to do a direct mailing for initial fundraising, but then planning something with the community to celebrate Apex and to celebrate the Apex Public School Foundation. And I'm not usually one for brevity, so I'm proud of myself. But I'm open to suggestions, questions, and networking. So there's some contact information. I thank you so much for your time, and to all of you as well. Please reach out if you have any questions or comments.
I do have a question. Is there another foundation similar to this that does kind of the same thing?
There is. There's the Wake Ed Partnership, which is a larger, much bigger scale for all of Wake County. But within Wake County, there's a foundation in Garner that's been in place for about 20 years. It's a smaller scale foundation, but is definitely part of their community and has a great relationship with their township, with their chamber, and with the community. There also is a foundation that is just kicking off in Eastern Wake that's covering Zebulon, Knightdale, and I'm blanking on the third township, I apologize. So we would then be the third educational foundation in Wake County. There is an educational foundation in Chapel Hill, Carrboro that also has been around for 20 plus years. I believe there's one in Chatham County as well. Good question, thank you.
So thank you for your presentation. One suggestion I have would be for you to connect with the school improvement teams, because they work on a 3-year plan. It's the principal, the grade level chairs, and then parent reps, which I've done that for, I guess, 10 or so years. And then my question is if you plan to bring this to the county level officials, particularly the commissioners, and then are you going to reach out to any of the state level lawmakers at all, just to let them know what you're doing in their towns that they're serving?
The Southwestern Area Superintendent, Dr. Ashley Thompson, has been part of this from the early stages. So we have support from the Wake County school system. We've reached out to Board of Ed members, to Bill Fletcher and to Lindsay Mahaffey. I have not reached out to any commissioners. Is that
Reach out to the chair, Jessica Holmes. She works for NCAE. She's an advocate with education. So I would suggest that too, at the
Thank you
county
so
level.
much.
But thank you for bringing this.
Thank you. Any other suggestions?
One quick one, we have Apex Downtown Business Association represented here tonight, and I know businesses often like to partner with nonprofits which benefit both parties because they both get a little bit of marketing and advertising for their own groups. We know that we've seen several versions of that done successfully in town, so maybe before you leave tonight, you can sync up with a couple of folks here in the front 2 rows.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Wonderful. If you think of anything after this evening, I am so open to making this as collaborative as possible. So please, again, reach out. And I'm looking forward to this journey. It's going to bring some great things to the community.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you so much.
All right, that brings us to consent agenda. And as we look at these, my request to the council would be that we take consent number 11, which is the town co-sponsored special event application recommendation from the committee, and discuss that as new business number 2. And if there are no objections to that, I'll ask if there's anything else or if there's a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve with consent agenda 11 being moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with consent number 11 being discussed at new business number 2. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that consent agenda passes unanimously with the one exception noted. We now move to the regular meeting agenda setting. This is where we establish what we will discuss tonight. As you've already heard, we've had one item added. Let me ask the council if they are in favor of proceeding with the current agenda as it now stands, or if there will be any changes. If no changes, a motion will be in order.
Motion to approve regular agenda with the changes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as printed with new business number 2 added. Is there any discussion on that motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, we have set the agenda. We now move to public forum time. And at this time, I will open the public forum as the clerk brings me the sheet. Thank you. So we have 4 people who have signed up to speak tonight. I would ask that you observe the 3-minute rule. You'll have green, yellow, red lights here in front of you, so you won't be able to miss them. Hopefully I won't have to ask you to stop, but we will proceed. In order, we have Bill Binder, Kyle Davis, Julia Beam, and Marshall Barnes. Mr. Binder, feel free to step forward and get us started.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
State your name and your address and proceed.
Sure. My name is William Bender, at 1428 Padstone Drive in the Salem Village subdivision. I'm here tonight to speak to you about pet ownership in the town of Apex, specifically about Apex Ordinance 4-3, which deals with the prohibition of certain animals. That prohibition deals with the keeping of livestock within corporate town limits. Livestock includes, but is not limited to, cows, goats, sheep, swine, and other similar animals, with the exception of horses, ponies, rabbits, and fowl, except male chickens. That definition currently includes all swine, which would include the something that's trendy kind of these days, which is pet pigs. Specifically, they're known as American mini pigs, Some are called Vietnamese potbelly pigs, or some are known as Juliana pigs. These are not your typical livestock pigs. These are not the large farm livestock that you would think of. These have been bred specifically to be pets and companions. They're highly intelligent, loving, and caring. They're even hypoallergenic. Typically, they don't grow any larger than the average dog, measuring about 15 to 20 inches at the shoulder when fully grown. They live indoors. They can be litter trained. When outside for walks and exercises, they can even be kept on a leash, just like a dog would. I would like to urge you to consider a change to this ordinance to add a new exception for these types of American mini pigs. I've been working actually with Drew Havens for a couple of months on this to put a proposal together for a new exemption to that ordinance. I'd urge you to strongly consider that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bender. Mr. Dennis. And then Julia Beam there you are. Okay, you'll be next.
Hey, how's it going? Kyle Dennis, 408 Grove Street. I can say those mini pigs are super cute. So I'm here today because I want to thank Audra, because she came to our ADBA meeting and said some words that actually kind of got me going to come back in and talk to you guys. So I've sent an email out since 2015 every year. And I'm here, I'm basically going to read that email to you. So myself, Kyle Dennis, and my wife, Megan Dennis, we have 2 daughters. We own Apex Outfitter in downtown Apex since 2012. We also have a house in downtown Apex that we just finished restoring that's on the historic registry. So I guess you could say we're all in on downtown Apex. I am hoping today to convince you, the council and the mayor, before the budget is formed, to allocate money for a downtown plan. Here's the reasoning. Before I expand on my request, it should be noted that I'm not only passionate about a downtown plan because of my home and my business, but also because while I was at NC State, I interned for the planning department of Apex. I believe that hiring a consultant who specializes in historic downtown revitalization and planning is essential for the future of downtown Apex. Almost all of our neighboring communities have invested in a downtown plan. Cary, Fuquay, Garner, and Holly Springs have all done this. Not only have they all done this, but Fuquay and Cary have both hired a full-time downtown development coordinator on staff for the town. That is right below their economic development coordinator. I think investing in a downtown plan would also solve many issues that we have today. Limited to parking in downtown, which we all know, we've all talked about, is a huge issue. I understand that all these problems are not easy to solve, but it continues to go unaddressed. Our downtown will not be able to support the fast-growing community. Another issue we have now is signage in downtown. There seems to be insufficient investment into attracting new residents driving by the area. A plan would not only help identify appropriate sign placement and design, not only for downtown, but other destinations like parks and town hall. Cary does a really great job of this if you've been in downtown Cary. There's signs all over. Even as you drive to 540 to Raleigh, they have a sign there for downtown Cary, even though it's nowhere close to there. Other issues that might be addressed in a downtown plan are downtown boundaries, aesthetics, business cohesion, future development opportunities that are required to sustain this rapid growth we have. A successful downtown plan could provide local residents with the opportunity to verbalize other ideas for improvement in our downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. I'm sorry, I'll have to cut you off there.
All right.
Thank you very much, though. Appreciate your request.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Beam, Julia Beam.
Hi, I'm Julia Beam. I own Grove Preschool at 115 Commerce Street and live in the ETJ of Apex. So I'm here to represent the Apex Downtown Business Association. I just took seat as in the second year of being the president of ADBA. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with our organization. We've had Wes there, and now we've had Audra, and we welcome all of you to come and help us. We want to work with you, but we also want you to just know who we are and what we need, so when you see needs from us come through, that you have a face and know what we need. The Apex Downtown Business Association is a not-for-profit organization. We represent dozens of small businesses that give historic Apex its small-town charm. Our organization has been instrumental in bringing the Peak City's community spirit together by facilitating teamwork, communication, promotional activities among businesses, community leaders, and service organizations. ADBA leads several events throughout the year. Downtown, we lead Music Fest, Peak Teak, Trick or Treat on Salem Street, Witches on Salem Street, and Christmas on Salem Street. Most of these events are free to the public. Our near-term goals are to include making downtown more accessible and more convenient to visitors, and revitalization and enhancement of downtown. In order to do that, we need your support financially as well. We have completed our application and turned that in. I know it's not due until February 28th. However, we wanted that into you prior to your retreat, your budget retreat. And we ask for your consideration of our funding that we've kind of historically gotten, but to consider the amount that we're asking, because we are now a town of 50,000, not 30, and so it requires more police presence, more expansion of boundaries when we have events, water trucks, barricades, all things that cost money. And our organization, we're just volunteers. And we do this because we love our town, and we want to continue these events, but we need support. Our goal, like I said, is to really make downtown more accessible. We need support with some handicap entrances and parking. We need support with just keeping our sidewalks safe to walk on. A lot of our areas are run down, and we need to make those pretty and safe. We have landscape needs that we maintain, that we also know that you maintain, so we want to get on the same page, so we're not paying Jones and you're paying Jones as well. And to reiterate what Kyle said, we want a downtown plan. We think our downtown is special. We're the postcard. People move here because of that street, not Beaver Creek. And we're on the picture of everything, and we don't want to be forgotten about. We need your money, we need your support, and we need you to know who we are and what we're about. So that's why I'm here. So thank you.
Appreciate that. And I do appreciate the fact that you got that request in before we have our retreat this Friday.
And just council,
I know.
None of those are considered at the retreat.
That's right. But still,
right.
Prompt. All right, Mr. Marshall Barnes.
Hello, Mayor, members of the council. Marshall Barnes, 103 South Salem Street, right adjacent to Anna's Pizzeria, which is close to downtown. Wanted to make just a couple of comments related to your consent item number 11, which is now new business number 2. We have a number of, seems like the list of events that happen downtown continue to grow, and I would like to ask that you consider posting on a regular basis on the town website street closures. I think the police department, the town has done this in the past in some instances where they've indicated a map where the streets actually would be closed, but that's been kind of hit and miss. I sort of feel like it's part of the other co-sponsors of these events to also put the information on their website, but many times that doesn't seem to happen either. And part of the concern is, last December with Christmas on Salem Street, I heard from a lot of neighbors that were not aware that Moore Street and Holloman Street were going to be closed. So my next door neighbor, immediate next door neighbor, usually takes their vehicle and parks over at the Baptist Church whenever there's a street closing so they can get out if they need to. Well, they didn't know Holloman was going to be closed, so they ended up not being able to leave. So anyway, just a thought.
All right.
I think that would be helpful. And you might also, the police department seems to be the ones that determine where the streets are closed, so maybe they ought to be the ones that draw the maps. And I've also noticed that there have been more signs up about no parking areas on some of the side streets. So maybe that's another thing that you can include, is just where parking is available for people that are out in the neighborhoods that want to come to town to see whatever event there is.
All right,
Thank you for your
Barnes.
consideration.
And for the town manager, I think, do you have any feedback on what we do or don't publish regarding street closures? Or
I do not.
is that a matter we can hear back from
It's an
after some
opportunity-
research?
You know, it's an opportunity for improvement, and we continue to make incremental improvement each year. There was an app for
Okay.
a couple of the festivals this past year.
Okay.
So our communications department will continue to improve.
All right, great. All right, thank you. That concludes our public forum, having reached the end of the sign-up sheet. So I will now close public forum, and we now move into the time of public hearings, of which we have one. Public hearing number one is our possible motion to adopt an ordinance on the question of annexation related to the Hypex Properties Pinnacle Park property. It's about 2 acres over on Reliance Avenue, and Amanda Bunch is presenting. Ms. Bunch.
Yes, so this is a 2-acre parcel located on the west side of Reliance Avenue, just south of 1010 Road, and they are requesting town services, and they need to annex in order to receive town services. You see they are adjacent to town limits to the north and the west, and the property is zoned light industrial conditional use.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Amanda before she sits down? Well, before I go to public hearing?
What business is there now?
I believe it's Stewart's Heating and Air.
All right. Thank you. All right, this time I'll open the public hearing, and seeing that no one has signed up to speak, I will close the public hearing. Refer the matter back to council for a possible motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that motion passes unanimously. That concludes our public hearings. There being no old business, we now move to unfinished business, where the town manager wishes to talk with us a little bit more about the Green Power NC lease purchase of a solar photovoltaic electric generation system.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council will recall that we, back in June, put out an RFP for the installation of solar PV systems on the Public Works Operations Building and Public Safety Station 5. The successful bidder to the straight RFP, the straight purchase, also offered a lease purchase arrangement. Council gave us direction to go ahead and look into that. Our attorney worked with their attorney, came up with a lease that was acceptable. Council entered into a lease for the Public Works Operations Building because we still don't really own the public safety station. That system on the Public Works Operations Building has been successfully installed. It's generating electricity, not right now, but it was today, and we're seeing the results basically what we expected they would be. Really still have no reason to doubt that we'll see about an 8-year return in savings on the electric costs in order to pay that lease purchase. The item before you tonight is to consider entering into a similar lease purchase arrangement for Public Safety Station 5. Again, this was already publicly bid. We have an instrument, the lease instrument, that is acceptable to our attorney and Green Power NC's attorney. So what we'd like you to do is authorize a budget amendment to take money out of fund balance to pay for this system. That total is $84,075. And what that represents is $1 per kilowatt, and that's what we pay in year number 1. And then year 5, we have to pay 10 cents per kilowatt to finish out the purchase of that system. So that's the lease purchase part of this. So we're asking for the funds to be appropriated, and then to allow the two attorneys just to get the commas in the right places in the contract, and allow those contracts to be executed. We would not commence installation until we receive a temporary certificate of occupancy for Public Safety Station number 5, and then I work with Mr. Hughes, who will be coordinating the punch list items to finish out some of the minor details of the fire station once we occupy it with firefighters and a fire truck. But we don't want to have a lot of confusion with the installation of the solar system on the building right away. So just asking for the budget amendment to appropriate the funds, so as soon as it's practical, we can get the contractor in there. When we'll execute this lease with them with some open-ended commencement time.
All right, any questions for Mr. Havens?
Yeah, Drew, were there any changes to the contract with the passing of a year since the last one? And I know that there may be some tax differences as well as there was the new tariff on solar panels. Is that the contract that we had before the same one as now?
Yes, sir, it is, Mr. Gann. And, in spite of the unfortunate tariff that's been placed on solar panels, this particular vendor is still committed to this $1 a watt up front, 10 cents in year 5. Council will recall that you see a capital improvement plan item to get as many of these systems as we can within the next year on our buildings. Just makes good sense, even though we're in the electric business, but it makes really good sense to generate electricity where we can, save some money, and do our little bit to save the environment, and also then encourage other owners of buildings of the size that we have to put solar PV on their buildings. It's economical.
Okay. Any other questions for the town manager?
When do you anticipate getting the CO for that public safety?
Any day now?
Any day now.
Yesterday?
This is a little off topic, and if you'll bear with me, Mr. Mayor. So we have really just one item holding up the temporary certificate of occupancy. We really thought, had that item been prosecuted the way it should have been, that we would have have it in hand already. Unfortunately, it was not. I think Mr. Hughes would agree, we probably should have it wrapped up this week. And we'll be able to get a temporary certificate of occupancy.
He made a face behind you.
He had a full head of hair when this project started. So did I.
And it was black.
And it was black.
And he was 100 pounds heavier.
Yeah. I got his. So, yeah. But anyway, we continue, and Mr. Hughes continues to push that along as fast as we can, but we will not accept on behalf of the taxpayers an inferior product.
Rightly so. All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll just say it's really a good deal for the town.
Yep.
It really, really is. We're making 0.5% or 1% on our money right now that we have sitting almost idle.
Yeah.
This runs it up to almost 8%. Even I can figure that out.
And as I like to remind the mayor of Holly Springs, when we beat them in the happiest town in North Carolina, there was a ranking. Our scores were identical in almost every category except for sunshine. We actually had more sunshine in Apex than Holly Springs. It's true. I'll give you the link if you want to look it up.
Right.
So we're a sunnier town as well.
Sounds dubious to me.
Which is good for the solar panels.
I don't know if I believe that.
Okay. They pulled up the data. All right, so we've had a little chat about this. Let me see if there is a motion, and I want to be clear here so that the town attorney is very happy with our motion, that we want to approve a contract, that we want to also authorize the town manager and the town attorney that they can make some minor modifications as necessary, and to execute the contract, and that we also approve a budget ordinance that appropriates the correct amount from fund balance in order to pay for this. Is there such a motion on the table?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Do you have a comment on the motion?
No, I just hope that, I very much look forward to us getting this one done as another example, and then charging forward and getting as much as we can get finished this next year.
Was that a pun? That was a good one.
No, it wasn't, but thank you for pointing it out.
Good. All right, if there's no discussion on the motion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that motion passes unanimously. And that now takes us to new business number 2, which used to be known as consent number 11. So if I'll give the council a moment to recall that.
No.
I'm sorry.
Number 1.
Sorry? I'm sorry, I skipped over new business number 1, didn't I? All right, let's do new business number 1 first. That's probably a good idea. So this was the emergency signal. Mr. Town Manager wanted to give kind of a readout on...
Right, so at the request of Ms. Killingsworth, this item was put on the agenda. You have a memo from me that explains, as best we know, what happened. So this references the sounding of a single alert siren on January 19th. It caused some concern in the community, some low-grade panic in the community because there wasn't communication. What happened was there was a malfunction in the control board at that siren locally.
Can we
Yep.
set the context clearly?
Yes, sir.
This is related to who owns the siren?
Duke Energy Progress.
Okay, and there was one sound from one siren.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead. I just want to make sure.
So it was a control board that malfunctioned in that siren. It did sound. There's no feedback loop to tell them that the siren has been activated. However, the system tests itself. Mr. Clayton told me, I believe it's in the memo, I think every half hour or so it tests itself. The signal sent out to the siren says, "Are you there?" "Yes, I am." And the system goes on its merry way. If the siren doesn't report back, then they go and check it out. In this case, it was a part malfunction. The normal way that things happen, if there was an emergency or if there was the ramp up to what could be considered an emergency at Sharon Harris, you all would know about it before the sirens sound. Because then the public they're in the process, Wake EM, Emergency Management, are in the process of getting word out to television stations, getting word out to radio stations, getting word out, getting ready to launch the information on Ready Wake. Because the idea of the siren is if you hear it, it's only supposed to alert people that are outdoors. That's why they're in places. So people outdoors hear them and go indoors, look at the television, turn on a radio, wait for the message to come from Ready Wake. When the sirens get activated in an actual emergency, information is there, ready to go. In this case, the siren activated, this was not, in spite of what you read in social media here in Apex, this was not like Hawaii. No one pushed a button. So there was no information. That's where things got a little confused when our police are calling our dispatch center, who is now getting flooded with phone calls from people who are calling dispatch wondering what the siren is for. And they're trying to contact Wake Emergency Management, who says, "What siren?" Because no one activated it. So there was a lot of confusion. As soon as we knew that it was a localized sounding and it was not an actual incident, we put that out through our social media, on our website. Ready Wake got it out. They took a little longer to get their message out because they go through a little more strenuous process of crafting their message before they broadcast it. To me, the best part of this is it heightens some folks' awareness, so they now understand there is something called Ready Wake to get signed up for that. They understand that every year, everyone within the 10-mile zone of Sharon Harris Nuclear Power Plant gets information that says exactly what to do if a siren sounds. And that doesn't include putting your kids in the car and evacuating town. It's go inside, listen and follow the directions. Because you may be just told, just stay inside. Because people self-evacuating just causes panic, and that actually ends up interfering, if we have to do an evacuation, ends up interfering with the orderly evacuation of citizens. So, unfortunately, it's one of those one-offs. Our entire communications department of one person happened to be with her mother at a fairly significant doctor's appointment at the time when I called her. So things, that part of it moved a little slow for us, but as soon as we were able to understand that there was not an emergency, we got that out. We didn't want to say, hey, all clear, if it wasn't.
Right.
So it took a while to verify that.
Right. Okay. Any questions for the town manager? I think he's done a good job of covering that and giving us kind of a readout, and hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to learn a little bit about it. I think the Ready Wake is a really good accidental benefit. I think they've had a lot of sign-ups since January 19th.
And then, just encourage friends, neighbors, citizens that when they get that information from Duke, it's not an advertisement for their services. It actually contains real pertinent and current information. Like, people I saw on social media, people were saying, well, go to Amazon to buy your potassium iodide. Well, no, you call the county health department. There's a number in there. There's a way to get that. You don't have to go to the market and maybe get something that's not exactly appropriate. So it's really good information. They take everything at that facility very, very seriously. And had this even been a hint of something that was out of whack, Mr. Jensen called me when he heard the siren, and I was standing on my back deck because I'd gone home to let my dogs out at lunchtime. And I said, well, it must not be anything because my phone hasn't rung.
Yeah.
So.
Have you guys discussed with Duke Energy about increasing that 30-minute frequency of testing? Can they ramp it up higher, or is it a cost to them to send the signal out?
Yeah, I don't know.
They can afford it.
I don't know what, in this case, I don't know what that gains them, other than probably the siren would have reported back saying, yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm going off, but I'm here. They still don't know. They don't have a feedback loop to show when the switch is open and the siren's on.
Oh, I thought, okay.
That's what they would need.
It just sends something out to be sure that a signal will travel from. Actually, there's 3 access points. There's 3 places that the siren can get activated to be sure that that communication loop is open. So if there is an emergency and someone pushes the button, that they actually work.
Was there a discussion about building that loop back to the mainframe?
They're still going through their.
They're trying to figure it.
Anytime there's one of these one-offs, they are more highly regulated than we could ever regulate them.
They're going to spend the next couple months writing up
Correct.
the findings, as a plane crash would almost do, right? What went wrong? What could be done to prevent it? What was the root cause? All that stuff, and how we're going to fix it so that it doesn't happen again, or whatever.
And I don't know, and just might be worth the council knowing, so every year we participate in an exercise. And every other year our exercise is graded. And then the exercise is on how we set up our incident command structure, how our communications protocols work. We spend, myself, assistant managers, police chief, fire chief, other fire personnel, communications people are in the incident command center, which is not in Apex, it's outside of the 10-mile zone. So we're, actually, if something's going on, I'm going to be out of town. But we test that, and FEMA is there, State Department of Emergency Management is there, watching everything we do, and they're grading us to be sure that what we're doing is the right thing. And you use the off years when you're not graded, it's a completely different, every year it's something a little bit different. Every year we learn a little bit, we make some minor changes to the way we do things. And the feedback we've gotten from the regulators has been very positive for the way we're ready to handle an incident. And the primary agency responsible for all of that is Wake County Emergency Management. At that point, we're working for them. We have resources that they don't have, in terms of police and fire, and EMS, Public Works, and all that. But at that point, we are working for and with them.
All right, very good. Thank you. Let's go to new business number 2 now, consent 11, and if the council wishes to bring those up. Part of the reason we wanted to bring this was there have been a couple of questions going about the last couple of days as to the submission process and the committee that reviewed them and how that went. So I thought maybe just to give us an opportunity, ultimately what we want to do is approve something either tonight, or if we really feel like the committee didn't do their job, then we ask them what we want to do about it and reconsider. We've got, I think there was 12 items, and if I remember, last year we had 17, right? I seem to remember 17 and 17 was a thing.
Mr. Brown is shaking his head, so.
Does that sound right? Yeah. And so this year we have 12 events, and we had a process of submission. Maybe can someone, either yourself or Mr. Wood, speak to the...
I've asked Mr. Wood, the director of the
Okay,
Kelly
good.
Cultural Arts. He's the one that's the person that keeps us organized with the process.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Maybe you could give us kind of a quick rundown of what the whole high-level process is for submissions and considerations.
Sure. This is the second year that we've had this policy and this process of reviewing special event applications. And there's two different types of special events. There's the co-sponsored. These 12 are co-sponsored, asking for co-sponsorship by the town. So any special event that uses a town road, greenway, facility needs to go before this process. If they're not asking for any town services, they're just having an event, it's closing the street, they're paying off-duty police officers, there's no other town support needed, it does not need to be a co-sponsor. And we have a process for that that's separate from what we're reviewing tonight. So the ones that are co-sponsorships, they have a deadline of December 1st. We changed that policy. You guys changed that in September 19th was the meeting that we updated that policy. Bumped that deadline a little earlier so that we have more time to review so we can start to tie into the budgets, because these obviously have budget implications for the various departments. So after that December 1st, all the applications come into my office there at the Halley. Then we disseminate that to the various departments to look at. Some for fire, police, public works, EMS, anybody that might have something to do with that event, particular happen, they'll give input of what they believe they need to do to support that, how many hours. And so then we kind of have a rough estimate of what it's going to cost the town to help these festivals. I mean, they're all valuable, and I'm deeply involved with one, the Peak Fest each year. I do a lot with the planning of that as well, so that's one of the 12. But so each of those we review, get a kind of a dollar figure of what it would perhaps cost, and that is using a rate, an average rate for an hourly rate for an employee that came from human resources that includes benefits and such as that, and there's the whole formula that we can go into later if you want to. But so we get that rate, we estimate the hours, and a lot of this is a lot of police driven, and public works probably secondary, and then maybe Parks and Rec is the third. But so they estimate that, and we bring that to the committee, the Parks and Rec committee, to review those applications. When we put together basically a summary sheet, we did this in, I think, January 9th. So we reviewed all those applications, gave our estimates of what we thought it would cost the town to support those events, based on looking at those applications and figuring out what the applicants were asking for. Not everybody was asking for the same things, and so each festival is a little different in what level of support they're asking for, what they need. And a lot of that's based on historical. Some of these have been around for a long time, and the towns have supported them in various ways, and so we kind of factored in that. And then we also just heard from the applicants. They had a chance to speak during that January 9th meeting as well. So basically the recommendation came from after that January 9th meeting, and that's that $65,417 estimate of what it would cost the town to be co-sponsors for those 12 events is that dollar figure that you saw tonight. And I think some of the things after that meeting that's come up is that the music festival was hoping to, and just talking about their application in specifically, because I think some of that is what we're looking at here tonight. They were hoping to use on-duty police officers rather than off-duty, and I think that was an estimated cost that the police department gave me of $6,500 and some change there for if you're hiring off-duty. So that was so they were hoping to basically use on-duty and a few other things listed that they sent us, and we sent that information to the Parks and Rec Committee to review.
What'd you say the cost was, I'm sorry, of the off-duty police, the same amount?
I believe $6,145 is the estimate that the police said they would need for to manage that safely for the Music Fest for off-duty police officers.
65 for on-duty?
6,145.
For on-duty?
No, that would be the off-duty cost, I believe.
Okay. What about on-duty?
On-duty's a different rate. It would be a less rate because the on-duty will actually it'd be a higher rate. Because the 6,145 is based, I think it's a $35 an hour fee for an off-duty police officer that anybody could hire if they have the availability. The on-duty rate's probably more like around the $90, just off the top of my head, somewhere in that range. I can find that out exactly, but so it would be a higher rate because that includes all the different personnel benefits, that formula that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So $35 an hour for off-duty.
For off-duty, yes, sir.
And we'll figure out the number. Is it 90? Is that accurate?
I don't have that piece of information.
I seem to remember 50 or 60 in previous conversations with. Okay.
I can look it up if I can find it real quick. A police officer on duty, and there's different types, but a police officer is $42 an hourly rate for on duty.
Okay.
An event supervisor is $57 an hour. So they have a combination of supervisors and police officers, so for each event that they would need. So.
But it's a flat 35 for off duty.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So somewhere between 42 and 55, you said?
Yeah, 42 for a regular police officer, $57 for an event supervisor.
Okay.
Did you have anything else prepared, or? Okay, let's see if, so maybe I can turn to Councilman Moyer, for the Parks and Recreation Committee. You guys reviewed this list. Can you give maybe the council just kind of a brief rundown of what you did and how that went?
Right, so that date of that meeting was January 9th, is that right? So we had our meeting January 9th where I think almost everybody was there who was requesting co-sponsorship of events from the town. Audra and I heard from David and from, sorry, I have something in my eye, from various members. We had questions. We asked for budgets on some of the events and how much money they were giving back to the community from these events. Some gave back drastically more than others. What they wanted from, just all the details of all the events. And then Audra and I got together after work, maybe a week or two after that, and kind of went through all those events. And we feel that everybody's original request that was in by December 1st, which was the deadline, I think we honored 100% of the original request that came in, minus a few date changes for conflicts with some of the car shows and other events. But
okay.
So then we had decided that, and then there were some changes that were made. So the December 1st was the deadline. We met as a committee January 9th. And then we received some amendments after our January 9th meeting, so it was probably 45-plus days after the original deadline when we received some updated requests for the one festival, specifically Music Fest, and we just decided to go with the original ask.
Okay, so Consent 11, the report that's there was the outcome of your committee meeting and consolidated by yourself, Mr. Woods?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that accurate? Okay. Okay. All right. Any council members have any questions about that process that was followed? Okay. Okay. Well, the question, I guess, before us, and maybe, you obviously we had a predefined process. We followed the process. that there were some requests that came in after the deadline, and that you gave that at least a little bit of thought, but thought that the process was followed, and that's probably, in order to be fair, I would guess, that would be my assumption, to all requesters, that there is a deadline for a reason. I mean, I know we put this process in place, Mr. Town Manager, a couple of years back, because it seemed in the past it was a little more ad hoc, and it was also hard for council members to keep track of what was coming in when and who got how much, and then there was a lot of opportunity for unfairness or things like that. So we talked about a process that we put in place to say, here's the one date for the one annual date, I guess, for the year. Okay, so with that just clarified, I would guess the question for council is, with consent number 11 in front of us, that the committee brings it to us unanimously, right? Is that fair? The question for council is, do we want to approve what was brought to us by the committee as presented, or do we feel like there's something else we need to do? We have the committee, so we know where their standpoint is. So I'm sort of looking to this direction. And if there's no objection, then we'll take the committee recommendation in the form of a motion, because the committee basically bringing in a report can be a motion in and of itself.
I guess I just have a question related to the presentation we heard earlier with the folks who are in the ADBA being volunteers, and with keeping it the way it is, would that create some financial hardship? And then was there a reason why it was late, I guess, that was explored? That's the two questions I have.
Okay.
Is there opportunity for public comment or not?
No, not on this item, sorry.
Can it be requested?
Well, what I'd prefer to do, because I don't want to set a precedent of doing that, what I'd prefer to do is follow the process. So let me ask the town manager, for the question that Mayor Pro Tem Dozier raised, did we have, or this is to the committee as well, I suppose, did we have any particular hardship listed with the late or addendum to the original request? That could be, for example, our fault. You know what I'm saying? Did we drop the ball somewhere in communicating what we needed to follow the process?
I think there's been a change in the organization and who the ADBA is using to try to organize and promote the music festival, and I believe after the submission deadline, they were, like every other group that asked to be considered for the special event funding, we communicate out, they send in their request. I can't speak to the mindset of the folks that were the applicants. All I know is that we received an additional ask for assistance from, basically financial assistance from the town in the form of in-kind services from particularly from police. There was a whole list of asks, closing public parking to be sold for VIP parking, and all. There was a whole list that originally wasn't considered by the committee, but because it wasn't in with the deadline, but was forwarded to the committee before they deliberated. So, I don't know if you all want to chime in on that.
I mean, I'll speak to my mindset if you want. Basically, I wanted to keep things as fair as possible in considering these. And one of the things that I looked at, and I went back and looked at this before the meeting, the off-duty police officers, I think we were very consistent in not paying for off-duty police officers. If they were asking for something different, then that was approved. But one of the other festivals, the Pig Fest, they're paying for their off-duty police officers, and we felt like that was a comparable festival, and that was one of the discussions that we had. So they didn't ask for it, and it looked like it would just be fair to be consistent.
All right. And so the music festival, we've had, what, 5 or 6 now, but this is a fundraiser, right? They've presented it as a fundraiser. And do we participate in their annual budget, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, sir.
In the ADBA budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you remember any, either the most recent, request or approved budget contribution?
15 requests, 10 approved, 10,000.
Okay. Was that for last
That's
fiscal year or the
fiscal
current?
18.
Okay.
Correct.
The one we're in?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That check was just this week.
All right.
Do we contribute to any other, like the Rotary, for example, and do we contribute to their annual budget?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we've got a recommendation from the committee, so a motion and a second is not needed, but let me ask the rest of the council, do you have any more questions, or are you prepared to vote for approval? Or would you like to make an alternate motion?
I can go first, I guess. I think the committee is right. We have to follow the rules that we have set up. It does trouble me that this is a fundraiser, and they didn't get their information on time, but if it's a fundraiser, then it's going to have to come out of the fund that's being raised at this time. Next year, I just think if they know better and they can follow the process better, then we can go, everything can be corrected. The one thing I do believe with the Music Fest, when I was down there, it seemed like there's a lot of people running around on the street that weren't paying anything for their little wristbands. And my suggestion would be, when we close off these streets, that we make sure that people pay to come on there, because it's not fair for those people who are paying money to go under the tent and then to have people right outside getting the same benefit. So I think that possibly the committee for this could change their approach to ensure that everybody that's down there enjoying themselves is participating in helping raise the funds. And I think the town could possibly help that in some manner. But I don't think we can help them. At this point, I don't think we should change the process. I'd have to agree with the committee. As much as I don't like to say that, I'd have to agree.
Can I make a quick statement? I mean, just to follow up on, as far as the deadlines and go, they've been very good about getting the deadline. In fact, they actually submitted 2 applications for the same music festival, so they were on top of that. And it wasn't until after that they were a lot of this, at the same time the deadline was happening, they were kind of trying to figure out the management team and a lot of those pieces and parts. So it wasn't any slack or any lack of anything on there. In fact, they were doing all they could to get as much information in as possible. And they did submit 2. And then we clarified which group are you going to go with Julia Beam, and she told me how that works. And so we've been working with that process. The application, we can look at that probably maybe in the next go-along, as far as tweaking that and making that where it's structured a little easier to get out of the applicant what they're asking for, perhaps, or what they're looking for. But I just wanted to make sure they understood that they were on top of things, and probably more so in doubling up efforts and just trying to, making sure they were meeting those deadlines and getting stuff into us.
Do you believe the deadlines were too arduous to meet under these circumstances?
Well, we did change the policy September 19th, and then we had a deadline of December 1st. So no matter when you put a deadline, no matter what, depending on where you are and what your festival and what time of year it is, what part of the planning process you're in, it's going to be different for each of those festivals. And it just happened to...
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts from council?
Well, now I'm a little bit troubled with the deadline situation, but everybody else seems...
We're not going to be ironed out at public speak for a while.
We can move this to...
I'm hesitating for a couple of reasons. One, you've heard us use the word precedent, and I'm concerned if I create a precedent that it's going to be used to wedge opportunities to speak when there aren't public opportunities. What I would do, though, is if you'd like to have one representative to give us an update on what you'd like to give us, so whether that's yourself, Mr. Reese, or Ms. Beam, or Mr. Sardina, someone to come provide some information to give us a little update. If you'd like to take a moment to determine who would do that, I'd be happy to give you a couple of minutes to do that. Thank you, Mr. Wood. So let's pause just for a moment. Hang on one second. Over here.
Well, we'll see what they have to say. I just, you know, it's a volunteer thing. They're trying to do good. But everybody's volunteering on these things. I mean, you look at the Tree Fest, and it's volunteer things. We're back here. It's unfinished business. Christmas on sale. They can meet with these folks. I hate to what you guys want to do.
I think that's a good idea.
Mr. Moyer, let's find out if that's what you guys want to do. Okay. Mr. Moyer, I think, wants to...
Okay.
No, they're not supposed to be whispering. It might clear it up and might allow them to be heard and not set a precedent.
You know you're coming to something. Well, it's the only argument you can make is to change the deadline.
Okay.
And that's the first thing that I'm trying to formulate are the deadline.
Mr. Reese wants to say something. I want to give him a minute, but then we can take the motion.
And these festivals that are later on that are getting geared up.
Did you make a decision if you want to share some facts to help clarify? What I'm not asking for is a sales pitch, but I'm asking for if you think anything that's been stated up here is factually incorrect and you'd like to present a fact that is different from that. So, Mr. Sardina? Okay. I'll also ask you to be very, very brief, there's no guarantee that what you say will make any difference, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to present, if I didn't say it, a fact. Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm with Sixth String Presents, David Sardina. Just recently contracted ADBA to put on the music festival this year. The application was submitted on time prior to 12/1. There were multiple applications from different parties who thought they were going to be involved with the Music Fest at the time, so they hadn't made the decision to choose me at that point in time. So to be safe, we got them both in. I was subsequently chosen. The application itself does not have a clear place on the application to be specific about what to ask for from the town. I did ask for in-kind services from the town where I could ask for it on the application itself. On January 9th, there was a meeting with the committee to go over the applications. I was there. no questions asked about specifics to me at that time. David Wood had asked me to provide details of what the ask was at that meeting. I didn't get a chance to catch him at that meeting with a piece of paper. I emailed it to him that night, which is what you guys now have in front of you. So as far as I am aware of, I hit every deadline that was given to me. I wasn't aware that I missed any deadline. I thought I'd been in the deadline. I thought that I was very specific when given a chance to be specific on January 9th, when I submitted it that evening after the committee meeting. So I don't know why the 45-day delay came in. I don't know anything about that. You know, that's what was submitted. So, you know, we were asking for a list of services, including police protection. I was not specific on the application, whether it was on duty or off duty. I just said I needed police and EMS. I figured the police department would work with me to figure out what would make most sense to do that.
All right.
So that's just the facts of how they exist.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sardina. Okay, at this time, I have a notion that there might be a motion from one of the committee members.
Yeah, let me ask a couple questions if it's okay first. And Mr. Wood, you might be able to answer this. We've already clarified some of these points. We give $10,000 to the ADBA. We don't give any money to the Rotary. The Rotary is a volunteer organization. The ADBA is a volunteer organization. The Rotary, how much did the Pig Fest end up giving back to the community through their fundraisers and everything? I can't remember that number. I know Mr. Wilson presented a number to us.
Was it, yes, but was it over 40,000? Was that something like that? I'm not sure.
It was.
The event
was like
raised
80,
more than that.
Yeah,
but
I thought it was
yeah.
a significant amount. You know, one of the factors I consider when I'm looking at these is, are we a co-sponsor or are we propping these events up, these 12 requests? And if we're going to run the event and be the primary person, then we have to make a decision as a council, do we want this to be our event, right? Or do we want to just take a backseat and be a co-sponsor, just like company XYZ over here is sponsoring to be a co-sponsor of the event, right? So at some point, I mean, we don't have an infinite pool of money. We have to be conscious of how much is going out and where it's going out to, right? So that was a factor in my consideration with this event. The ask grew significantly over previous years, and I felt that being consistent with what we have done in years prior was the right way to go. And I know there's been internal transition with the festival and with hiring a third party, and hopefully things are trending in the right direction, but so that's the decision. That's where through our conversation, that's why I ended up just honoring the original request that kind of matched years prior, and this is where we find ourselves. So that was, I mean, I'd be willing to approve the other, I guess was there 10 or 11 special events, and we can pull this one if it's okay with you, town manager, and we can have more discussion with the group and individuals involved in planning this event to see if there's some sort of middle ground. Do we stay where we are? Do we, you know, I'd be willing to do that.
Mr. Moyer, just to clarify, do you know is there an estimate of the cost, if we had included all the asks, how much would this 2,182 go up?
Mr. Havens, was it 12?
Yeah, the estimate provided by the applicant was $12,500.
Okay.
So $10,000 round numbers.
How much are you giving Pig Fest?
So I do actually like Mr. Moyer's suggestion of pulling it separately and having more of a conversation, especially given what Mr. Wood laid out there, you know, the more information related to possible some confusion with the application and that they have always been doing this timely. I believe in equity, but I also believe in sort of understanding, you know, there's certain factors in that we would apply that to anybody, to any of the 12. So I do like that, pulling that and maybe, you know, talking to them a little bit more about that, working that out if that's something agreeable to both of you.
Why don't I put that in the, ask Councilman Moyer if you could put that in the form of a motion to recommend approval for the 11 items that are not Music Fest, and maybe we can put those aside, and then we can take up the topic and decide if we want to have some further conversations offline for that item. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds reasonable. Do we need to send it to committee, or?
Well, one thing at a time. Let me ask for a motion to recommend approval for the 11.
So.
Okay, and you second? All right, and as a committee member, I guess that's fine. All right, let me ask, we have a motion and a second to approve the 11 items that are not Music Fest, and I'll now ask if there is any discussion on that motion. Seeing no discussion on that motion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, so that motion passes unanimously. We have now approved those 11 items. Now that leaves the Music Fest item still open.
So I'd like to make a motion to refer the Music Fest back to our committee, Parks and Rec Committee.
Okay.
To discuss with the applicant in more detail.
All right, and I guess I'll include the town manager on this. Do you believe, from your standpoint, there's further discussions that can be had at staff level, even with the applicants as well? Or would it be preferential just to go straight to the committee and handle it there?
The staff will staff the committee and work
Okay.
with the applicant and the committee.
All right, so okay, thank you.
Get our heads
Just
together.
wanted clarification there. So we've got a motion to basically have this item go to committee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we got a second and a third. Let me ask, is there a discussion on that motion to send this item to committee for further discussion? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that motion passes unanimously. I'm certain Councilman Moyer and Council Member Killingsworth will be more than happy to schedule a committee meeting within a reasonable time frame so that we can have this conversation further. As most folks know, committee meetings they're committee meetings. So it's not necessarily a time for public input at those. However, I'm sure that between staff and themselves, it would be good if a few folks are there, because if they want to turn and ask a question to get clarification or to get your opinion on something, it'd be great if you're there to actually be able to share it. So if you want, in that case, to talk to our communications person or our town clerk, or check our website, and we'll get that meeting posted as soon as we figure out a date and a time and a place. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah,
all right.
And I'll communicate with Ms. Beam about when that happens.
Okay, so we can be proactive and communicate it to the ADBA.
And we'll need to circle this back and make a decision at council by your first meeting in March, because this does have fiscal 19 budget implications.
Right, okay.
Do we need to make a committee meeting for next week then to make that happen?
Next week, week after, yes.
Okay.
All right, very good. Thank you very much for considering that, everybody, and thank you for your patience. I know the process isn't ideal, but this is how we work, this is how we roll. So we're going to have that committee meeting. Hopefully, if some of you can be there, or send a representative. Certainly you can send your, if you have thoughts that you want to send in advance, we all have email addresses, you know how to reach us, or a phone call. With that said, I will now look at the agenda to see that we have concluded all of the new business, and we now have one last item, which is a closed session item to consider and establish town's negotiating position with respect to the acquisition of real property. Is there a motion to go into closed session for that purpose? All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, we're now going into closed session, and let the public beware, we have, or be advised, we have no further open items to discuss tonight. Thank you very much for being here.